Welcome back to the Overwatch Pacific Championship in Week 7. I'm Kevin AVRL Walker. Joining with me tonight is Matt Pixie Carroll, as we're still going to be continuing on with day 1 of Week 7's festivities. We just had Flash Wolves versus AHQ, and now it's going to be Flash Wolves versus Machi. The first team to take on the stage will be Machi Esports. And
I touched on something interesting with this before. I kind of want to jump back onto this more because I think this is one of the big things we'll now answer, is how much of their prep time have Flash Wolves been able to dedicate to Machi. I do expect them to pull out a win here, but I actually think it might look a bit closer than what it was against AHQ, and that'll speak to how Flash Wolves divvy up their prep time. It gives a bit of meta information to the support staff of these other teams. Let's take a look at the Wolves.
Oh, hello everyone, we're Flash Wolves.
Hi 各位，我是殿堂特工团队的老大瑞，我们是正义的化身，除暴安良，打击犯罪，完成不可能任务是我们存在的目的。
So we have, of course, the lineup again. We've already seen this one more time, but if you're just joining us, it is Flash Wolves' home day. We had Coach Ray, player of the match for last match as well. Jongi, this is K Momo. He is the off tank, as K Momo is the main tank. We also have here Real Mint.
医护兵来了，我是31，只要有我在，你们就放心的冲吧。
Again, as long as I'm there, you're going to be safe. The other support, Sinclair.
我是新客，队友受伤，我会治好他们。
And if you're injured, I'll be there to heal you right back up. Bacon Jack on that offense DPS role.
之后，我的任务达成率将达到87%。Bacon Jack 就是我。
And Bacon Jack, and he's got a gun too. Speaking of someone with a gun, and it's loaded, Zonda, the other DPS player.
刺激与危险，我想成为最完美的射手，并且帮助我的团队毁灭所有敌人。我是龙达。
Of course, he's going to eliminate all competitors, all enemies.
好，既然
Flash Wolves, man, what an entrance from these guys on the home day.
I think Zonda is like the scariest of them all, because he looks so unassuming. He's like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
I've also got the two coaches now. Cassis on the right side for Machi.
今晚来势汹汹，当然我们也会努力，期待我们的表现。谢谢。
He's going to put in all his effort.
好，闪电了。
And thanks for the support.
我们不会因为赢了一场比赛而松懈，那我们一样会尽全力打好这场比赛。谢谢。
We're not going to be sort of
好，再次提醒大家哦，
sitting back after just
结束
taking
之后，
one
闪电狼的
victory.
成员们会在
Make sure
现
we
场与
keep
大家
trying
进行
and pull out our
问
best
与
for this
答
match
跟合
as
照，
well.
所以大家千
Yeah, I
万
mean,
不
they've
要
earned the
错过
steak dinner, but if they screw up this one, they're not allowed
I got
any
corrected
sauce.
actually. It's actually a barbecue they're going to.
It's a barbecue.
There's probably still going to be steak, but
Probably. But some other things too. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If they lose this one, I think they're going to miss out on like some sauce or some kind of sides.
再游览很多次吗？
They're going to miss out on the bacon.
好，
That's actually really
好，那
true.
大家千万不要错过了。好，先握个手。
Okay, so there you go.
好，
Again,
握完
one
手
more
准备要
time.
开始比赛喽。
Both coaches are shaking it off before we get right back in it. And there's an interesting storyline back here as well is, of course, last time these two teams met, if you've watched before, you know Machi took down Flash Wolves. It was a 3-1, if I'm not mistaken. And Flash Wolves won the assault but dropped the other 3 maps. So.
And when that happened as well, I kind of touched on this more towards the end of that round robin, but it happened at the start of the round robin and very much defined it from that point onwards, right? Because it was the rise of Machi, it was a lot of questions raised about Flash Wolves, who then went on to lose to AHQ, which then in turn signaled the kind of upswing of AHQ, which has kind of brought us to what we had just before. Like, that was a series that defined a lot of that round robin, and I feel like a lot of things were very knock-on. There was a lot of cause and effect that can be linked back to that specific game. So this is very much a time for Flash Wolves to kind of tie that all back up and go no more of that back on top, or for Machi to reopen that book.
And it could still kind of go either way. And what you've said that's been quite interesting is, hey, look, there's the potential that Flash Wolves may be a little bit underprepared going up against Machi than they have against AHQ. And again, the lineups as well coming up for both teams. One you might not have seen just yet tonight is Machi. You got Kent known as Kiyomi, DCL1, No Talk, and Restia as we get into individual players as well. Man of the match from last match against HQ, Jongi. Again, the first one up.
A phenomenal Winston. I find it interesting that the Winston hasn't quite passed the Reinhardt in the most pick there, but hey, Anyway, I kind of want to touch on something else with Machi, though. I mentioned this a little bit at the top of the night in a different context. I mentioned it in terms of Flash Wolves. If they had lost the AHQ matchup, and then even worse, had lost the Machi matchup, they would have been very much in striking distance of losing the third place slot. They're not within that same kind of striking distance now. So what that really means for Machi is this is a win they very much need, or they lose their shot during this round robin to take third place. They will be relying on getting it next round robin, and they'll have to not drop a game, basically, between now and then to still stay within striking distance to do that within the space of one round robin. Basically, it is now a smaller window, and it may get even smaller if they lose this.
And this is, of course, Flash Wolves. They're getting 2 wins today would absolutely put them back up on par with the other 2 teams currently ahead of them, which is AHQ and, of course, Blank. So getting themselves back onto sort of that level score-wise is really important, specifically for fighting for #1 spot going into the playoffs. Just going to round up the lineup now with the Real Mint on the end. So a really well-performing, well-rounded team on the Flash Wolves side. They've now kind of shown they can try just about anything else out. Got to take a look at Machi's side as well. So DCR1 going to start things off. It's usually the tanks I've noticed that we're starting things off with, and No Talk as well. Got to be on that off-tank position as well.
Yeah, I want to sort of mention something about Flash Wolves supports, and we will actually see this as we go through the lineup here for Machi as well, because they have it in a similar way, but not strictly speaking on the supports. And that support flexibility is becoming more important now that we're seeing a lot more variety in terms of the Lucio and whether or not it is taken and how teams kind of run with that. We're seeing a bit of Ana Mercy, we're seeing a bit of Zenyatta Mercy, seeing a bit of Zenyatta Ana. We're seeing different combinations all up. And then we're also, of course, seeing those 3 with the Lucio. And you actually see, compared to Flash Wolves, where they basically got the 2 supports who will swap between those 2, Machi kind of had their support potentials spread out much wider among the team. That can be a help and a hindrance. The help is that more people can do more things. The hindrance is that if you've only got one guy who can adequately play your Mercy, and he is currently on something that isn't a healer, you may have to rejig your whole team all at once just to get that change through, which is sometimes not doable, and you just kind of have to sit with a subpar thing.
I also have something to bring up specifically while you were on supports for a moment there, but talking about Ana is Machi in particular. In interviews that I've seen that they've sort of given, is they highly rate Kiyomi, their main Ana player, as one of the best in the competition. I've also seen other teams also highlight this guy in particular. Now,
certainly wouldn't disagree with that.
The interesting thing to note between his relationship with Machi and also with Flash Wolves is, from what I can gather, again, based off interviews, is he's a bit of a protege of Sinclair's. And one of the key things that he's mentioned himself in interviews is he wants to be able to show that he's not just sort of in Sinclair's shadow, and he wants to be able to overtake Sinclair eventually. Now, I'm not too sure whether that's because they were ex-teammates. Maybe Sinclair was, a mentor for him. Whatever being the case, Kiyomi is a bit of a young player himself, and one of his primary goals as an individual is to overtake someone that is ahead of him.
Maybe it's a friendly rivalry. Maybe it's not quite so friendly. Who knows?
It's a rivalry. Definitely has a lot of respect for the player. Anyway, the map did come up. Flash Wolves again on the home position, gets to pick maps 1, 3, and 5, as well as the corresponding starting sides. And back to Oasis.
Yeah, back to Oasis. This doesn't surprise me at all. And when I talked a little bit about questions of how much they will have prepped for Machi specifically, they haven't prepped for Machi so much as they've prepped for this map in particular, which is more advantageous. And you talked as well about quality versus quantity of prep. This is one of those quality things, because prepping very hard for a map is something that can get you mileage in multiple matchups, and they've got a lot of matchups this week. So I like that they've gone back to this, and this, like I said, shows how they're prepping.
And specifically as well, if you do know which maps you're picking, so if you're on the home team, you're picking map 1, which is always control, you can just practice on 1 out of the 4 maps. You can completely ignore whatever else you know you're not going to play. Just play what you know you're going to get, which is your pick anyway, in this case Oasis. So if you're Flash Wolves, you could have spent the entire week only playing Oasis for your control scrims if you wanted to.
I also feel like this is a little bit of back to basics. We didn't really note this in the AHQ matchup, but actually in the very first round robin against both AHQ and Machi, Flash Wolves pulled out Oasis, and I believe they were home picked as well. So and of
round
course,
robin?
and of course on both they won. Now they didn't when these teams met in the second round robin, and I feel like part of that might have just been Flash Wolves didn't have home in that second round robin. But if this was nothing but a case of them going, well, look, this worked for us back then. Let's prep for this map and go back to that, see if it can still work. If that's the only reasoning for it, it's sound reasoning and it's worked.
This is actually what we just saw, just moving backwards a little bit from Flash Wolves versus AHQ, as a kind of a little bit of a mirror to day one of the entire OPC, where it was
very tight.
Flash Wolves and AHQ starting things off 3-0 in Flash Wolves' favor, Oasis being the first map, and again, a fairly tight series nonetheless.
Yeah, hard fought and well won is how I'd put it. I feel like the nature of the win was a little bit different. I do feel like the first time around was really just a case of Flash Wolves being that little bit better, whereas I feel like this most recently was more about Flash Wolves shutting down AHQ, but look, what's happened has happened, right? The question in front of us now is, can they do it too to Machi?
And of course, Machi have a lot of questions, I'm sure, of their own, which is, hey, we beat Flash Wolves once.
Can we do it again?
We need to be able to repeat that performance, and I'd have to agree. Like they've shown they can do it. They got to try again.
Yeah, well, 2 questions and only one can be answered in the positive. We're going to find out which one it is. Certainly, Flash Wolves feeling good after their recent win back on Oasis as well. And Machi have definitely paid attention to that series because they are positioning nice and different to what AHQ did. And already starting to work as they pick Bacon Jack as well. That should be all they actually need to get this first cap.
And that's important. Machi secure the high ground early.
Oh,
Wow, the
Sinclair
headshots
too.
at the end as well. That's 3 kills.
Okay, no, that's the friendly rivalry. That's Kiyomi killing Sinclair on Zenyatta with headshots.
Oh man, I think it's more of an Ana versus Ana rivalry, but you know,
Still.
Zenyatta, you'll take it, sure. Machi though, getting that last kill was a little bit unexpected. I think for Flash Wolves, they wanted to back out after losing 2. Losing the 3rd is going to put Machi slightly further, even if it's just by a few % on the ult charge. But importantly, positioning and also progress-wise, Machi are set up.
Yeah, very much set up. And like I said, set up in a way that HQ never really did for themselves either. I think part of that is the different team comp. They're not running triple tank like HQ.
We didn't even finish the first fight by this time against HQ.
Yeah, exactly. So here we go. Flash Wolves now kind of forced to attack it onto the slow ground, which means Machi do get to re-engage when they choose, but never mind all that because Bacon Jack is still Bacon Jack, secures a triple, and that's going to be the cap off the back of that.
Oh boy, Bacon Jack gets 4 plus a minute.
Sorry, yeah.
Look, this guy just really wants to get to the barbecue. He doesn't want to play games anymore.
He's hungry. He's really hungry.
He heard Ray talk about a barbecue. He's like, yeah, we're gonna finish.
Yeah, he's like, what? No one told me about the barbecue. His name is Bacon Jack. You think he doesn't like cooking meat?
So Flash Wolves, they get the recap. I think they gave Machi a little bit too much space here. A lot of that did come down to the fact that losing Sinclair at the end, getting the extra stagger, as well as the fact that Flash Wolves needed a bit of time to retake positioning against high ground anyway. Machi got a few ultimates to work with here, and it is on the onus for Machi to do something.
It very much is. Well reacted by Flash Wolves, and this is exactly what we saw against AHQ in this slight denial. They're not letting Machi get set up, and now good positioning by Zonda that is completely unanswered. Yeah, forces out the sound barrier, but it is a good barrier and should see them through this entire ultimate out of the Soldier. Double Transcendence to come out. Kiyomi did commit a little bit earlier, so Flash Wolves will get theirs a little bit later on. Now that's starting to pay dividends as they close out on Nonez and should start to close out this fight off the back of it as well. Have plenty of ultimates to use still, but ideally won't even use them if they don't have to, and they're still getting the picks anyway, so going to hold on to them for now.
Yeah, I wasn't quite impressed by Kiyomi's use of Transcendence earlier there. I think they needed to let the sound barrier sort of run its course a little bit more. Stacking the sound barrier and the Transcendence together wasn't really going to pay dividends for Machi, and we saw that as soon as Zonda came out with the Attack Visor, he really started to clean up.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, Kant.
Yeah, hello, Kant. He can't get close to the point. And I mean, that's just, again, this denial of space right now. Machi really do have to wait for Kant to come back. He is one of the few ultimates they have to work with.
And an important sort of opening ultimate as well. And Bacon Jack will be looking for the exact same thing. Whichever Tracer can get a decent bomb to start things off with, I think that will really spell the result of this next fight.
Bacon Jack goes wide. He did get some damage down, but that just got healed straight back up by Restia. So he gave away some ult charge. Let's see what Kant can get. Can't get anything, and already Kiyomi is down as the rest of Machi is stuck into this room. Zonda uncontested. There is no corner to hide. Restia going down as well. That should be the first map going over to Flash Wolves. That was... Once they had the map, once they had the point, They were not at any risk of
I think
losing.
Flash Wolves were rather calculated about that. The only real part that kind of tripped them up is, again, Sinclair dying to the headshots from Kiyomi. That was not expected by Flash Wolves. They didn't account for that. That wasn't part of the calculation. I'm not trying to make them sound like the Terminator or anything, but at this point, after beating HQ, they might as well be too. But hey, in terms of the planning for Flash Wolves in this fight, it was they needed to, the opening fight that they lost, but then regrouped and came back into when it was about 40% for Machi. That was the most important fight for Flash Wolves because after securing that, they weren't in a position to lose again. Flash Wolves have a really excellent defense and a really good understanding of what they needed to do on that defense, and I think Machi lost a lot of initiative after that as well.
Yeah, and again, I talk about Flash Wolves being a strong, adaptive team, and we saw that right there. The adaptive, the reactive. And if anything, the first fight was almost them going, oh, right, this isn't AHQ. This is Machi, this is different. And I feel like it looked a bit different in the AHQ one because the first fight was so protracted. That time around, quicker, but Flash Wolves still reacted
Look
quicker
at this though, Machi, one thing they've done extremely well is aggressively take the position they want every single time. That's also due to the fact that Flash Wolves are kind of taking different positioning. Where Flash Wolves are sitting now is roughly where AHQ was starting before. So it's a different opening from each team, but it is low ground versus high ground.
Yeah, the dive gets committed to by Flash Wolves, and they do pick out a couple for it.
Well,
That's
that
great.
wasn't
Yeah,
shot.
losing Bacon Jack isn't ideal. And actually, Machi are still kind of set up on this high ground, but they have lost the point. Eventually, they have to commit to the low ground if they don't get a whole round of kills, and they're not. They're not even really getting trades here.
So the advantage of the low ground here for Flash Wolves is they have control of point. They have control of actually getting the cap, and Machi have to contest. Machi have to be the ones to actually do something and physically move
it doesn't matter that they have the high ground. They do have to give it up. They have to fight on the low ground to take the point off Flash Wolves. Otherwise, you just let the loss happen.
The Flash Wolves are definitely currently in control after getting the initial pickouts, and Bacon Jack aggressively tried to deny Machi as well once things started to really go for this. Nonez eventually has to be dealt with here, but at the same time, Machi, again, they have to be the ones to contest this cap.
Yeah, there's a game of chicken going on here, right? Where Machi, they know they have to commit to the low ground, but they want to try and get a team wipe first. So Flash Wolves are kind of teasing it, they're baiting it, and now they're forcing Machi to commit because Machi realize they're going to just lose all the opportunity for an advantage. But Flash Wolves have already set themselves up, absolutely steamrolled Machi, and just played them for fools.
And even Machi right there, the last two members, Kiyomi and Nonez, just really couldn't get themselves out of there. That should ideally have been two players that Machi didn't want to give away, but they had to drop two extras, putting Flash Wolves, who, by the way, used a decent number of ultimates, kind of charging them back up just slightly, and Machi still looking for an opening. They've been playing super complacent the whole game.
Yeah, Bacon Jack does miss the stick once again. That is a potential ultimate opening, because like you said, there's not many ultimates available. They do have the sound barrier to give themselves some mileage, but losing Sinclair is bad news. Their own sound barrier will run out, though. Flash Wolves have an opportunity here, but K-Moment out of the mech. They are losing that window. It is being slammed shut by Machi. Jongi needs to hold on to his ultimate here. He cannot afford to throw it away. They need to let this one go over, maybe bleed it for as much time as possible, and then come back and regrab when they have some ultimates of their own.
I think Flash Wolves are actually losing a few members here, so I don't want to count Machi out just yet because Machi get the recap, they get it into the overtime. Actually, the good news is getting it at 99% is technically better than getting it at 98% because of the how the overtime sort of works when you get the recap. But Machi, they're sort of in the situation where they've got so much time to sort of catch up on. They've got the high ground again, but if Flash Wolves want to play on the point, I think Machi are going to have to move.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with this high ground move because, like you said, yeah, Machi are the ones who had to move, and they had to come down to this low ground. Flash Wolves are on it now, so actually Machi are kind of the ones attacking onto it. They're going to have to commit all their ultimates first as well, which means Flash Wolves now have the opportunity to be reactive. They do lose Realman.
Flash Wolves can save.
Transcendence does
Flash
not
Wolves
come up in
should
time.
save.
Yeah, they need to back off now. Now, especially losing Sinclair. He could have given them the mileage, but they've absorbed some ultimates. They forced Machi's hand, and they can just go back in a second time around with a lot more in their favor.
They should be able to save all three of the remaining members if they can, and they should be looking for that. Machi are going to get set up again on the high ground, so they definitely like to keep this positioning. It's difficult for Flash Wolves to contest, but also Flash Wolves don't necessarily, I feel, have to contest it. They can force Machi down, which has been their game plan so far, and Flash Wolves this time definitely have the ultimates. They have defensive ultimates too, which means, hey, look, if Machi want to recontest a point once the Flash Wolves start to attack it, they can survive.
Yeah, I think Machi got away with it last time because Flash Wolves didn't have enough ultimates and they got a couple of key picks, but this is risky business by Machi, and it's not paying off now.
Early tack
Flashwall's the
visor.
one set in. Yeah, early tack visor, but it is forcing Machi's positioning. Makes it hard for them to commit to the low ground, but they do lose it anyway, as Nones commits his own visor with the sound barrier on top of him. Singular not saving enough of his team with that Transcendence, and Jongi not buying enough time. K-Momo doesn't really want to commit his self-destruct just yet, but they don't really have much more of a window to do it. Actually, it's because he was asleep. There you go. Doesn't even get it off before he gets popped out of the mech. And actually, this could well be Machi turning it around and taking it back.
Absolutely. The extra few seconds bought there, the end by staggering K-Momo is going to affect Flashwall's ability to retake the fight. And Zonda's in a lot of trouble. Wow, he dodges traffic, gets himself back. And
yeah, that was risky business as well. Let's waste time chasing cars, or at least chasing Zonda through the traffic. Machi kind of fighting off to the side of the point, but it is working because that is where Flashwolves are. And, well, I'll call it a little bit unexpected, but very well played. I feel like Flashwolves committed that tactical visor, like you said, out of Zonda a bit too early. I see the intention was to kind of catch Machi as they were coming off that high ground, but it ended up hurting them because Nones still had hits.
yeah, the other thing is, for Flashwolves in particular, I felt like they kind of dropped that final offense a little bit. They had the right move going in, take the initial cap and just force Machi onto the ground, but that tag visor out of Zonda was totally ineffective. He got shut down straight away. Also, you're right, Sinclair had the Transcendence, couldn't catch Zonda and they couldn't save enough team members. So all of these ultimates that they built up over time, where they had to throw away fights, coming back in at an advantage, that advantage disappeared so quickly. Machi capitalized and they finished off.
Sinclair's going to have PTSD after that. I couldn't save them. In any case, different map, different game. Jongi's dead.
That is,
well,
I gotta say, one thing Machi have consistently done is do well in these opening fights. Look, they won Gardens opening early. They took arguably better positioning earlier on.
Oh man,
on City Center as well. Now this is a real cleanup for them going to University.
Maybe a touch of misprep actually, because Flashwolves' new HQ would play Triple Tank. Triple Tank doesn't play for that high ground quite as much as 222 does. Machi, they are constantly playing for the high ground. They're actually playing triple DPS, in fact. So they want that even more, because if they can keep Kiyomi up there safe, while Nones and Kant harass the rest of the team, they can win these fights fairly easily. Flashwolves don't seem to be respecting them. Machi will go for high ground.
So here's the thing about Jongi dying early is usually you'd have the Ana or Zenyatta topping you off as you go in. When you're running a Sombra, that just doesn't happen. Also, you haven't hacked any health packs yet, so Jongi dying early was always a risk for Flashwolves, and unfortunately, I mean, that risk just flipped on tails for them.
Yeah, I also don't know how much they get out of this EMP. Like I said, oh wow, it's actually enough as it turns out, as they kind of use it to open up the fight, and they managed to pick the DPS.
Bacon Jack's crazy good, so
yeah,
there you go.
I mean, they got the picks on the back of it. Kant trying to keep it alive for his team, but he should go down, and that will be the regrab. But the thing I was kind of touching on, when I saw this against HQ, I said, yeah, look, when you EMP tanks, they're just big health bars at that point. When you EMP DPS, they've still got guns. They've still got DPS. They just have a little bit less.
Well, what you're really doing is essentially A, denying the ultimates from coming out as a timing thing, and then B, you're denying shields if you can out of specific tanks. So
it's not as impactful.
I mean, those are the main things, as well as the abilities and everything like that. And speaking of impactful, so far this isn't getting anything done.
Yeah,
Nones.
Not quite. They did get one good pick at the top of it, but the trade back onto Nones is very, very important. That's another EMP to come out to kind of cut Machi off at the neck as they tried to commit to that one, even as it was a lost cause. But now they're able to fight through it. They're able to keep this one kind of held down. Yeah,
is a lost cause.
Well, at the time when it was committed, it looked like, I won't say it looked like a lost cause. It was kind of a lost cause for Machi for a moment there, but they just kind of grit their teeth.
No, for Flashwolves. For Flashwolves, because they didn't need to, I felt like they didn't need to commit a sound barrier right there. They were already in a losing position. They were looking, maybe thinking we can turn this around, but it was already it was already like a 3 or 4 versus 6 situation where Machi also had a sound barrier of their own. So Machi are kind of, for me anyway, getting further and further ahead. And also from the EMPs, aside from the one where Baker Jack got 4 kills, that's just a situation that so far hasn't happened again.
That is a very early Transcendence to come out. Oh, and unfortunately, Rescue going down. Flashwolves going to try, they're going to really go for this one. They're committing hard, and it's working. I'll say that much. It's working for now, but this is just one quick grab. They did commit a couple of ultimates to it, and Machi do have plenty of time to come in themselves and win the map outright.
So the good news for Flashwolves is they're in a position where they can start setting up this defense quite in the way that they want to, which is they can now get every single health pack that they wanted for sure, and also they have an EMP prepped up while they're in control of the point. This is where Sombra really starts to shine. This is where I believe Sombra is the best. Less so retaking, but much better when you already have control.
Oh, good pick by K-Momo, taking out No Talk out of the picture. That's going to stop up Machi's next attack. Buys Flashfulls a ton of time on the point.
It does. It also, you know, the ult charge as well. Flashfulls had really good damage spam just right at the end there as well. In terms of progress, Flashfulls are absolutely going to even this one up. It should still be fairly close. I'm expecting a big engage out of Machi, but they have to play against EMP, and you know, Sinclair's ready to go.
They don't have their ultimates up yet either, so the EMP can kind of cut them off at the neck, like I said, but already, there it goes out, and they're starting to mop it up already. Bacon Jack just waiting for a good pulse bomb if he can find it, but he might not even need that. His secures known as the overtime is there, but no one from Machi is there to contest it. Flashwolves looked a little bit hurting at the start of that one, and Machi did play a few of those fights very well, but Flashwolves, it's that reactive play. They figured out how to get that in, and then did not let go from there. There should be the secure coming through any second now.
Yeah, this is Jongi playing goalkeeper a little bit. Keeping everyone out of that.
Bodyguard. Bouncer Jongi. I prefer Bouncer.
I want to see...
Or maybe it's security, because
I want to see Winston in a black trench coat skin where he's a bouncer.
Yeah,
Anyway.
can we get a Bouncer Winston skin?
Yeah,
and then, like, instead of his greeting, he's like, "Can I see your ID?" You don't look over 21. That'd be great.
Yeah, but for Flash... Well, actually, I don't know who I want to speak to first. Flash Wolves did actually... They struggled to get the retake in there. I think once Flash Wolves are in a position where... Hey, look, they have a setup composition, right? And a setup composition kind of says we need to set up a very specific kind of play in a specific situation, which is have control of the point, have all the health packs hacked, also have an EMP to play with. Once they got that, they were fine, but they struggled to get there, and that was the problem.
Yeah, I mean, when they played that against AHQ, they did actually lose the opening skirmish. They then won it back immediately after that. This time it took them a little bit long, but it certainly does seem that once they're in that position, they kind of aren't crackable. They're going to try and play this one a little bit differently, though, as... They did drop this one to Machi before, and already going to try and kind of force them off this high ground here. If they lose members, though, Machi should be able to commit to the win here. Kant going down is very nice work by Bacon Jack, trying to pressure it onto K-Momo to kind of swing it back in their favor, but it's not working. Flashwolves are going to grab the point, and like I said, Machi, unless they choose to commit now, they've just kind of given this up in favor of taking the high ground.
Yeah, so for Machi, this is the only stage of Oasis where they haven't consistently gotten that first cap, and where Flash Wolves have. That was a very optimistic Helix rocket as well. I don't think that was realistic on the hit, but you know, look, you want it for the highlight reel if you can.
Yeah, if it had, yeah.
That'd have been on YouTube tomorrow.
That's a really big commit out of DCR1 with the nano boost on. And they do kind of make it pay off. Gets a couple of kills even as it got a little bit tight there. So well executed. Zonda keeping the pressure on to No Talk here, but he doesn't have too much support left as Nonez opens up with the tactical visor to close that one out, and that was a very clean commit out of Machi for the regrab.
What I liked out of Machi there was they sort of understood, like, we can't just be complacent on the high ground anymore. Like, we actually do have to fight on the low ground. They did do that. As soon as they did do that, like, got the cleanup, and they're so far ahead at the moment, not just in progress, which is where they're actually not ahead in progress. They're catching up in progress, but in terms of positioning and also ultimates, this is now Flashfulls kind of where they were the last time we saw them against Machi.
They've got two sides of the Monopoly board right now. They've got the point and they've got the high ground. And eventually Flashfulls, unless they get some really great dice rolls, are going to start to get worn down by that. This is a great commit though. Jongi, he's like, nah, none of this nonsense. And yeah, he's just landed on free parking. Going to try and go straight onto Machi here. They need to secure a couple more here. There we go. Taking out Kiyomi. It's not even Kiyomi, it's DCR1. In fact, Kiyomi's probably going to be the only one not taken out at this rate as they look to get No Talk as well. He commits the self-destruct. Don't know if I agree with that. It was kind of last ditch. We'll get Sinclair, but it's not like it's going to buy anything for Machi aside from a few more seconds on the point and a good convincing retake by Flashwolves, who now have the advantages.
Barely even buys seconds on the point because it doesn't directly contest the point itself. So even that was kind of questionable as to the final decisions, but I think Jongi single-handedly opened that up for Flashwolves. You see him immediately dive onto the high ground, shutting down Nonez and I believe it was Kiyomi as well, and then securing kills back on the low ground straight after that. Jongi was kind of all over the place, but always in the right place where he needed to be.
Yeah, like I said, landed on free parking, and now they're kind of looking to buy Mayfair with all those ultimates available. That's the early commit out of Machi. They know that they had to try and move quickly or they're not going to get any window in this at all, but completely negated out by first that Transcendence, and then the Pulse Bomb should be all they need. The Flash Wolves don't have to commit any more to this, and that's huge for them. Drew a lot more out of Machi than what they used, and still have advantage anyway.
Machi are definitely committing at sort of all points. When they're losing, they're dropping out, they self-destruct. When they're sort of getting in there, I'll give them a bit of, I'll throw them a line for this because it was a situation where, you know, maybe they're just not aware of exactly how far ahead Flash Wolves are, but with only 2 ultimates spent by Flash Wolves, still got a defensive one in there, still got a Primal Rage to sort of stall out, and you got damage out of Zonda as well. No, you don't actually have Zonda out of anymore.
That's very big by Kent. They're going to commit the sound barrier to try and make the fight happen off the back of that, but Realman commits his own. Notice isn't finding much with this Tac Visor. Finally closes out. Whoa! Right as I say that, as it turned out, the 2 healers were a bit too low. That's one good trade back by Jongi, but that's not going to be enough, and he knows it. He's going to take a dive here. That was the only one match he needed to win there, because that was one where Flash Wolves were the most favored. I honestly thought they were going to win the match outright just there, but wow, great execution by Machi to leverage what little they had.
All right, I mean, Flash Wolves back onto 99. I think we've seen Machi in this situation before, and they need one fight, but that one fight, it is still a bit of an ask because Flash Wolves, although they got taken out in the last fight, they saved a bunch of ultimates. I think they're still
dear.
Especially with that kill.
Yeah, especially when you get
a real
headshot
sniper,
by the Zenyatta.
He's a real sniper.
Carrying, bro. It's the, like, orb of accuracy. I don't know. Anyway, Zonda now opening up the Tac Visor. He got, he got Kiyomi. That was all he needed to get, but they closed off on Rescue 2, just add insult to injury. Again, the self-destruct goes out. It buys time, but that's really it.
DCL1 needs to be contesting the point. I don't really like that play out of him. He was going for damage. He was going for a bit of disruption, but his whole team was dead. The only thing he should have gone for the end was to delay cap.
Yeah, well, over time going to tick down, and should have tried to delay that cap, but unfortunately didn't. And they could have maybe staggered that a little better between No Talk and, like you said, DCL1 as well contesting the point. Maybe could have bought themselves the extra seconds to regroup. It would have still been an uphill battle, though, so I did still favor Flash Wolves despite the mistake by Machi there.
Which play is this? Which of many of Baker Jack's
I wonder what it could
plays?
be. Could it be the double pulse bomb and then the 4 kills?
I think the 4 kills includes the double pulse bomb though.
Well, yeah, it does. But then he got the mech as well, just to make it look
4.5. Give him 4.5. The mech counts as half technically.
It does. 4.5 kills. Doesn't sound as impressive like 4.5k. It's like.
Oh, it's more impressive than just straight 4. Anyway,
it's not as impressive as 5.5k.
What I want to say for Machi there is they did end up getting one of those rounds. They did end up getting one of the stages of Oasis. I do want to say that the one that Machi did get, I still think Flash Wolves were favored to win because right at the end there, coming in with, what, 5 ultimates against like 2, coming in a situation where, again, it was still Machi playing fairly complacent, playing a kind of waiting game.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's like okay because you start off good, but as soon as Flash Wolves make a move, Machi got to decide what they want to do very quickly, and they decided, but it was almost like Flash Wolves had a lead, threw in a Tac Visor that got nothing done, threw in a Transcendence that didn't protect the guy using the Tac Visor, which is Zonda, which is who you want to keep alive, and then things started to really fall apart for Flash Wolves. So they should have won, but they didn't.
Yeah, I won't call it botched. Just a couple of things went a little bit wrong, and that was the difference between winning and losing. And that is what how a lot of games go. But I mean, when it's just one map out of a potential 5, that's not the end of the world, right? And I kind of liked the idea behind what Machi were going for. It was kind of cute. They were only playing for the high ground. We're trying to win, like I said, this game of chicken, but I feel like that's an inherently flawed strategy, right? Because actually what you do is you give all of the cards to the enemy, and then all they have to do is play them right. Now, you're banking on them playing them wrong. You're banking on Flash Wolves in that situation, basically putting themselves into a position where you can commit onto them, and Flash Wolves are too smart for that.
This is where I want to be able to compliment Machi, because what they did do well consistently is those opening fights. Fair. They got the caps very early on for a number. City Center aside, we look at Gardens and University, it was Machi in control very early on for a decent amount of time too. And I don't know what happened to Flash Wolves, but it wasn't like Flash Wolves just said, take it. Flash Wolves tried to commit for it too, but they sort of fell short. One of them was Jongi getting taken up very early. I already noted that's because you're only running Lucio as your solo healer. If you're Winston dives in, if Jongi goes in like that and he doesn't get the support immediately, he will just get taken out. That's exactly what happened, and Machi played it correctly. Yeah. Then got the further kills, and that's pretty much all they needed.
It certainly seems that in all of those maps there, Machi, when when they decided what they were going for, when they had their plan of what they were looking to get right at the top of the game, they got it. They did that very well. And it just so happens, right, that on City Center, they weren't looking for the point. They were looking for high ground because they had a different plan. And again, they got that in convincing fashion. There was only the first time around that Flash Wolves really tried to fight for that, and then they would all know this isn't working and still kept the point. Second one, Flash Wolves knew what they were going to do, and now let's let them take it because we can just take the point instead. But yeah, look, Flash Wolves still struck back each and every time. Took them a little bit longer in University, but they still struck back. And then on City Center, they kind of played Machi's strategy.
Even when we look at Garden Zone, Machi kind of, it really came down to, I think, the opening kills for Machi. It was, got the opening kill. I can't remember who it was on that time. Killed somebody, then Zonda, then Bacon Jack, and then a headshot spree onto Sinclair as well from Kiyomi. So 3 very quick kills in succession really put Flash Wolves behind a bit.
And then the thing that put them back was getting that player of the game out of Bacon Jack, was getting the 2 with the Pulse Bomb, and then 2 more after that, and popping the map as well. Like that. And look, sure, if that's all that meant Machi won the first fight, well, then we can say, oh, that's all that made Flash Wolves win the second fight. But it still happened, and Flash Wolves still took out the win, and you have to look at that and say they're the better team.
What I think the point to get here is, so far, it does look like Machi had stronger. It's hard to say. I'm trying to compare the AHQ series to this on Oasis.
I find it hard, and the reason I find it hard to compare them is because Machi played a totally different round of team comps, and they played them totally differently, even when there was a little bit of crossover. I mean, it was 2 different teams playing 2 different games, and Flash Wolves beating both of them in very different situations.
I want to say that Machi played style-wise different to HQ rather than pure composition, because HQ ran 2-2-2 for
it was a bit of both, but when there was crossover, Machi were playing it differently to what HQ did anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, next map pick has been revealed. Machi has chosen King's Row.
This is interesting.
Probably watched Nambani and said, not for me, not today.
But last time these 2 teams met, on King's Row specifically, or maybe it was the first time. In any case, there was a now almost infamous Flash Wolves run on King's Row, where they were defending first, other team got the cap all the way through, and they had, I think, about 3 minutes in the time bank, and I was like, yeah, no, that's not bad. And then Flash Wolves flattened them. And I'm almost certain it was Machi. They absolutely flattened them and had like 6 minutes in the time bank. It was either Machi or Hong Kong attitude. But in any case, that's what Flash Wolves carry into this. They are probably one of the most comfortable teams, if not the most comfortable on King's Row, for what is normally just a comfort pick for anyone. I feel like Flash Wolves are the one team you can't pick it against because it's your comfort pick, because it's more comfortable for them.
I want to say AHQ are actually really good on this as well, defensively.
True.
Because their game plan to protect Dizzy, they execute extremely well, particularly on the first cap. They do that I think they do that one style of play better than anyone else trying to emulate that style of play. Not that other teams really go for that style of play, but any team that even attempts to halfway get there, because every team on defensively pretty much runs a soldier somewhere, right? So your goal, at least some part, is to protect that guy, and no team does it the way that AHQ do. So I'll give that to them, but I think you're right about Flash Wolves on King's Row as well. It's still very scary.
Yeah. To me, what this actually says is Machi don't know where to go. They don't feel like they have anywhere where they're favored. So they're like, all right, well, let's just take the one that we feel the most comfortable on, even though it is probably still favored for Flash Wolves. Yeah, it's fine. It's sound enough reasoning. This is a very sound Riesling. 05 Reserve. Oaky on the nose. Dry finish. Anyway, sound Riesling aside, Milford Sound Winery do a great Riesling. Anyway, just saying, man. Sound reasoning aside, that's not a great situation for Machi. If you are in a spot where there is no good pick for you, so you go for the one that is the least bad, you're almost admitting that you're the weaker team.
I don't know if we can jump to that conclusion very, like, securely. I think we can speculate there a little bit, but I don't know. I think Machi definitely don't just do that. Machi, obviously, this is still a team that do prepare as well. I mean, everyone has something they've got ready to go. And for Machi, they knew from a week ago, even longer, that they knew they were going to be away. They knew they had to come up with
Yeah.
a hybrid that they were going to play against
I mean,
Flash
I'm
Wolves.
going to go ahead and say I'm not expecting it to be like Machi get 3 minutes and Flash Wolves get like 6, but I do feel that Flash Wolves are favored here.
And a very rare Xayah that we kind of seldomly see now in today's meta.
I do like me a good Xayah. I call Xayah the infinite skill cap character, but anyway, opening the skirmish. Machi quite far forward on this one, and it could hurt them if they don't back up adequately, but losing DCR1 means they are going to struggle to back up adequately. It's really only Nonez who's able to do so. Running this triple tank, interestingly enough, may buy themselves enough time to get the respawn, but Flash Wolves are set up on the point. Machi kind of had to counterattack, and they're running short on time to do so.
I'm really surprised DCR1, they let DCR1 go down there, specifically
here they
when
go.
had a Matrix. Here's the repush now.
Yeah, just barely came through in time because he died so quickly, but they're struggling to get on the point, and again, actually, it's precedence to Flash Wolves to set themselves up around it. Yeah, that is a kill. They do pop Canned out of the mech in response, but actually, Machi do kind of strike back adequately. They recovered very well from losing DCR1, but they do unfortunately lose 2/3 in so doing.
DCR1 is probably arguably the worst person to lose in that initial fight where they got quite aggressive because he is literally the front line. So as soon as DCR1 goes down, your team, the other 5 members are incredibly spread. So Flash Wolves, they have the ultimates going into this. Despite the delay Machi had, I still expect Flash Wolves to be able to get a push on through as soon as they commit.
Yeah, and like I said, well reacted by Machi. That they kind of made the best out of that, given that they lost DCR1 specifically, but this is the best kind of recovery you can get, and it's still losing 2/3. Yeah,
Flash Wolves are going to save here.
That was a very nice commit out of Machi to try and buy some more ultimate charge for them, get that Earth Shatter and Graviton up, but Flash Wolves do still have a lot of ultimates in the back.
I'm not convinced by Flash Wolves there because they chose to save. Their alternate option was to commit, and they kind of could because they have a Transcendence, and it's just like, cool, you're going to spend these ultimates. Let's nullify them all with Transcendence and immediately get the counter push in there. That was an option for Flash Wolves. They didn't take that option, and I kind of think they should have.
I wouldn't be surprised if the decision-making was just playing patient because they only have to get a 3rd. There's no rush to commit, but you're right, they actually could have gone for it then, and now losing Bacon Jack off the top of this one means they probably can't go for it now because Machi have a few more ultimates. Actually, picking Nonez is quite good.
I mean,
maybe gives them an opportunity.
Machi have equalized.
Yeah,
look.
Bacon Jack has a shorter walk. There should be a commit out of Flash Wolves. They're just looking for an opening, and there it is with Zonda with the Nano Boost running. Good Earth Shatter by DCR1 to try and cut the follow-up, and they do get the healers out of the picture, catch the rest in the Graviton. That was good stuff for Machi. Drew all the ultimates out of Flash Wolves here, who did not get that final 3rd.
That is, oh man, that was difficult to watch because Flash Wolves to me kind of made an error. I feel like I'm going to go back to the same push I'm talking about because the events of that push led to what we see here, which is essentially Machi was so far behind Flash Wolves. Machi needed to win to get those ultimates back up. This is now desperation.
This is desperation, but it may just work if they can get the picks because Machi don't really have any more ultimates to go off except for the self-destruct. They're trying to buy time for DCR1 to get this Earth Shatter. There it comes up now, but they pick Nonez, get no talk out as well. That forces the Earth Shatter out, but there's not enough follow-up once again. DCR1, he's trying to one-man army here. It is counter kills, but Flash Wolves, they can still kind of push for this, especially if Bacon Jack keeps getting more on this back line. They got Canned out of the mech, and there's going to be the self-destruct. And Flash Wolves, oh man, they're really trying to drag this one out now because they can't afford to back off anymore.
There's a sound barrier from Restia as well, so Flash Wolves, I don't know if they have the damage because Pulse Bomb's good. It won't burn through the sound barrier. They're going to have to wait this one out just a little bit.
Oh, that's a key one for them, reflecting that... the Fire Strike as well. I nearly said Dragon Strike, but that's a completely different guy. And Bacon Jack getting canned as well. And actually Flash Wolves at the 11th hour kind of pushed that one through there. Pushed it through the gate. And I feel like that was just a slight dropping of the ball in terms of the positioning from Machi.
It was good patience out of Flash Wolves, being able to, I guess, wait out the sound barrier just long enough. Getting the kill from Pulse Bomb onto Diva on the other side as well for Machi. From Flash Wolves onto Machi really pushed them forward, as well as getting another couple of key picks. DCR1, as you said, being one of them as well. So eliminating the tanks really put them ahead.
Yeah, early commit out of Zonda just to kind of make space for this, and really pays dividends.
This is actually good.
That's absolutely massive. Actually, really poor by Machi actually to fall prey to that. Should have maybe either been set up further back or just kind of gone, look, it's one guy. Like the rest are all on the payload. Come on, let's fight this. But I want to just touch on that first point. Look, a worse team wouldn't have captured at the end there where Flash Wolves did, but a better team wouldn't have made the mistake that Flash Wolves made that put them in that position in the first place.
Yeah, one very costly mistake, which is, should we have saved or committed? Saving meant they lost like a good 2 and a bit minutes, so.
Yeah, well, here's another good position out of Flash Wolves. Again, Machi, I don't agree with this positioning. This is very, very aggressive, and they're getting thoroughly punished for it. Flash Wolves now crazy far forward, going fully Hunter-Killer onto Kiyomi off in the room on the 3rd point. Before they've even capped this point, they've absolutely hamstrung Machi now in terms of their ultimates.
And so, in terms of Machi's decisions there, they had kind of 2 options, which was let the cap go entirely or attempt to get a last-minute contest in there. And I think it's okay that they went for the final contest there because there was the possibility for them to come out, and it also does force ultimates out of Flash Wolves, which kind of puts Machi a little bit ahead currently to be able to secure this defense.
And they're going to go ahead, throw out the Nanovisor to do exactly that. Oh, the Transcendence gets forced out and doesn't quite save Bacon Jack. That's a little unfortunate. Does save K-Momo for now, which is quite nice. Zonda now going to go and commit himself. Yeah, that's a bit of an overcommit. Maybe should have waited to draw more out of Machi as the Earthshatter is going to come out now. They're looking to completely clean up this fight here. Should be able to route out K-Momo and Jongi.
I've heard many times, especially from Zonda's own mouth, he doesn't like to play Genji anymore for that specific reason, which is you pull Dragon Blade out, and there's many in time you just get nothing.
You're a target.
You get absolutely nothing, and you sometimes get a nano committed with the Dragon Blade, and for 2 ultimates to get 0 kills and they just get eliminated. Yeah. It's not Zonda's day. It's Flash Wolves' day, but it's not Zonda's day.
It's a lot of pressure because you have to get 2 ultimates worth of mileage out of your positioning and your gameplay, which is a lot of pressure.
I'm actually going to give it to DCL1 instead, back it up with the sound barrier.
Guess who's unstoppable? That's actually catching Zonda with a self-destruct, very important for them. Even though they didn't get much, strictly speaking, out of DCL1, and a good trade back kill actually means Flash Wolves, they're going to go ahead and try and keep this one going to get some more payload distance, maybe even draw some more ultimates, commit a pulse bomb of their own, going to be able to drive Can out of the mech, a nice one for them. Bacon Jack going down to Nones shots in the back there, but this is payload distance for Flash Wolves, even if it's only a little, and they do force Nones to wheel around. Pays off for him, he's able to step back up, but they have at least broken that point that Machi were trying to hold at.
And they kind of broke that because Machi went for the nano play on DCL1, which was, I don't know, it could have been or couldn't have been a bad play, but the fact is, Flash Wolves played around it correctly because they backed up, didn't allow DCL1 to get anything, and then also ended up killing DCL1 straight after the result, which gave them a decent amount to push on. 5 ultimates for Flash Wolves. They set themselves up in a decent position resource-wise, but they got to cap the full point.
That's big. Nones should not have gone back up there. Flash Wolves had already broken that position, like I said, and yeah, Zonda, he'll be happy to take this one.
Finally,
certainly dealt with the pressure. Yeah, finally indeed. And that was with the Graviton being committed as well. This is nice for Flash Wolves now. It means Machi don't have much to go on as they're going to come spewing out of these base gates here, trying to get that defender's advantage. Flash Wolves have plenty of gas in the tank. It's really just the tactical visor.
Oh,
no, it's not. Not at all.
No tank visor.
Yeah, great. Secure there. And now Zonda going to keep the healers kettled along with Jongi. No one's going to be able to step out to adequately contest this point. It will be trickle in from Machi just to try and run down the clock, but it's already in overtime. So the best they get is an even time bank if they go to overtime themselves here. They can't bleed Flash Wolves any drier, and Flash Wolves are going to get the grab any moment now.
Bit of a heartbreak for Machi right at the end there. I gotta say, like, Nones, that's your one ultimate that you can sort of try and bring yourself back into. Would have been difficult anyway, because what they really needed was something defensive, like transcendent sound barrier, something like that would have been able to keep them in the fight, because anything else would have just had them eliminated quite quickly. So even when Nones respawned with a Attack Visor, he just got annihilated straight away. Machi were, after that, there was no way they were coming back.
That was a game of blunders, in a way. I don't feel like both teams just, like, derped their way to the end. It's not like that. Man, derp. I just said derp out loud. Oh.
Sounds much better in your head, doesn't it?
Yeah, I haven't heard derp since, like, 2009 or something. Anyway, it's not like both teams just kind of fumbled and stumbled, that's better, their way through that one. But both did make some odd mistakes. Right off the bat, losing DCR1, terrible. Shouldn't have happened. Very overly aggressive positioning by Machi.
Especially without training.
Yeah. And that's such a high-risk situation, because if you lose one person there, you can lose the whole fight. And they lost the worst possible person to lose. But then played extremely well, dealt with it as best as one possibly could, and managed to stop the cap coming through for Flash Wolves. A lot of teams would have got that cap there. Like, teams worse than Flash Wolves would have done that. Very well done by Machi. And then Flash Wolves did their own thing again, where there was a moment they could have committed, they didn't, and then put themselves in a hard situation, made the best out of that, still got the cap through. So it's hard off the back of that to say who is looking in better shape right now?
I want to say towards that initial play from Machi and in particular DCR1 with that aggressive defenses, it actually would have been fine if they got a counter trade. If they managed to get kills themselves, that wouldn't have just been a walkover for Flash Wolves. Machi could have actually continued that, maybe contest for further trades and actually play the point itself without having to back off. Because they lost one, couldn't get another kill, they had to give it up. By the time they came back, they let 2 ticks, 2/3 of the tick already go.
Yeah, well, like I said, there was best case scenario was 2 ticks instead of the whole cap, but yeah, unfortunate to give up 2 ticks because of 1 death. In any case,
kids.
Yeah, 2 kids. I gave up my 2 kids. Well, in any case, this is now Machi on the attack, already taking out Zonda on this high ground is nice. They do lose No Talk's mech, which is a bit of protection gone for them, and now Nonez himself not going to get any more DPS out. And Flash Wolves actually should hold off the back of that, even though they lost Zonda.
Yeah, well, this is the difficult thing. I don't know how it is possible. Zonda consistently dies early, just all the time. Just doesn't matter what it is. Cowman maybe hooks him, maybe he jumps in Dragon Blaze and he just dies. Or maybe Machi just walk up the stairs and just find him. But somehow, some way, Zonda dies. Dizzy as a soldier player, that just doesn't happen to him.
You know, I think I'm going to speak to that a little bit because when we do have superstar players, Zonda is one of those players. You do get a bit of a target on your back.
So does Dizzy, but he just doesn't.
Oh, exactly. Well, he does and he doesn't because some teams just do prioritize Dizzy, whereas I think Flash Wolves had a different strategy in particular. But certainly it seems that Machi's plan is to go after Zonda specifically, but we saw there, right? Flash Wolves still won the fight.
He should still be protected.
Hear me out, because I think they were expecting them to dive on Zonda. They should have been protecting him, but they did still deal with the divers and shut them out after Zonda had died. Unfortunate that Zonda already died, but they won the fight. So, I don't know, maybe they're playing around it. It's hard to say.
They had to win the fight, though. I mean, if they didn't at that stage, it would have just been like, well, I mean, Zonda gave it away. This is now Flash
this is another one fight.
Continuing to win the fight. So, defensively, anyway, I think at this point, it does just quite seem apparent, especially if Flash Wolves can turn back a Zonda death into a winning fight. Flash Wolves are easily out-defending Machi.
Yeah,
in terms of when you compare the 2 defenses.
Machi picked first defense because they were like, well, look, maybe we first hold, or like maybe we can, you know, if they do take it to the end, we can take it to overtime, have a decent time back, something like that. They kind of got one of the better situations, but now they're at risk of just getting first held by Flash Wolves.
Which wouldn't be a total surprise. I mean, Flash Wolves got a couple of tools left in there. Specifically, they can both stall out and have damage output. I'd be interested to see what Kant can get out of this. Transcendence got used, by the way.
Oh, that is very, very early out of Kiyomi. Rescue no sound barrier just yet, and Realman will have his Transcendence as Machi commit to this fight now as the sound barrier is out as well. That is indeed going to be Realman's Transcendence. Doesn't quite save Sinkler, but the rest of Machi happy to throw themselves onto this point into Flash Wolves, who still have things to throw out. K-Momo will get back in the mech. Jongi throws out his ultimate to keep the fight alive, and Zonda, he is still alive in this one, still pushing out the DPS, and they're not quite shutting him down. Slowly, Machi are going to start getting beaten back here if they're not careful, because they're out of resources, and they don't have a favorable position here. They're just trying to force Flash Wolves into disarray. Flash Wolves are playing too disciplined for that. Now Machi starting to push them back a little bit. Flash Wolves still plenty of room to re-engage, though.
The Flash Wolves don't want to give this one. I think Flash Wolves believe they can absolutely get the full holdout.
Yeah,
I should probably say. And
that was the re-engage that I was talking about just then. And, happened a little earlier than I was expecting. I thought they were maybe going to go for something with Bacon Jack specifically, but they got it out of K-Mobo instead. You'll take it wherever you can get it from, and now Machi have 1 fight left.
I actually don't know if you realize or you really saw yourself, but they threw so much at Zonda at the beginning of Machi's last fight. They threw so much at him without killing him. Yeah. That's the big thing. You throw that much resource without killing the guy.
Oh, no.
I mean,
DCR1 already out.
That's when you're not favored to win.
That was the sticky bomb and some shots to go through there. Good work by Bacon Jack, and this should just be a secure. Kant's ult goes wide, gets eaten up, if I'm not mistaken. And he's in the wrong position anyway here. Gonna get shut down, even though he did get a cheeky kill. Nonez trying to go hard on the point to turn this one back around, but 2 kills is not enough when you have no teammates left, and Flash will still plenty of members on the point to keep this one on lockdown. K-Momo can throw down the self-destruct right in the choke point there to stop anyone from trying to come through to contest, and Flash Wolves do indeed complete the first hold and look very, very good.
It's difficult to even say, like, yeah, good work, Bacon Jack. At that point, it's just standard. It's just like, yep, you did it again.
It's the Bacon Jack effect. Like, oh, look, Bacon Jack was Bacon Jack.
It's just standard play coming out of Bacon Jack. No surprises there. At the end, there's Zonda significantly died less, or died significantly less would be a rather better way to put it. But what's funny about this play of the match is, if it's the one I think it is, where he finally gets a lot of kills out of Dragon Blade.
No, this is before that. This was actually the one. I feel like,
yeah, I remember.
I feel like Machi maybe mispositioned. They were still setting up to take an early fight and draw ultimates out. Well, they got exactly what they bargained for, which was they drew out Zonda's ultimate and he wiped them. Because they weren't in position yet, right? They wanted to...
They never got position
They
again.
wanted to take the fight. They wanted to make it happen. They didn't want to receive a fight. They didn't want to walk into a fight. And that's exactly what happened. That's why, actually, most teams haven't been doing that lately. Because a lot of teams have gone back to what we saw a long time ago now, where often they'd commit something like a Genji quite far forward on the second phase of hybrid maps. King's Row especially, to create space for that payload. And a lot of teams, teams need to be able to sit back, draw them out, kill the members that go far forward to create the space, and then you can commit to that fight. You can't, you can't jump the gun there.
So it's, for the defensive team, it's understanding it's going to be a 6v5 because there's going to be a solo Lucio pushing. Then secondly, understanding there's going to be a general lack of AoE healing coming out of that attacking team. And then thirdly,
even then, a lot of teams can't fight that.
And then thirdly, understanding it will be the attacking team trying to take initiative. So look, you can be the responders. You can look at it and be like, this is what we predict is going to happen here. This is our plan to play around it. And I think Machi walked into a bit of a trap there, whereas they could have noticed the trap extremely early if they wanted to.
In fact, I don't even think it's down to noticing the trap, right? You should just know that that is how teams play King's Row right now. And it's not even just Flash Wolves, right? It's everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Flash Wolves especially. So I think that was just purely Machi dropping the ball. Not sure where that call came from or why. Maybe they actually have tried to prep something where they have this way of countering that particular thing, but look, it didn't work, and it made them look silly, to speak frankly.
Yeah, and also, I guess on that front, it is just well played by Flash Wolves. They got exactly the situation they were looking for. I think their reading and understanding of the situation is essentially, Machi are probably going to walk out here. This is where we want to make the engage.
Yeah.
This is the expected result of the amount of space we're going to make, how much cart push. And actually what was really good, this was a bit of a smaller scale thing that people may or may not have caught on to, but a lot of teams after that engaged by Flash Wolves would have pushed further and actually into the base. Flash Wolves decided to pull back, throw extra members on the cart, get that additional 3 push, and actually they prioritized the pushing over the further spawn hold. And this further spawn hold is a much riskier play because you're even further away from your Lucio player. You're also deeper into enemy territory where their spawns are closer and more favorable for them. And generally, it's a bigger risk. So Flash Wolves made a safer option, safer play, and said, we actually want more cart push because that's more valuable to us.
And I do actually like Flash Wolves taking the safer player. It was almost just purely showing respect. I do also think on their offense on the first point where there was kind of that moment they could have committed and they didn't, it caused a lot of problems for them. I do actually feel like it was the same reasoning there. They went for what they felt was the safer play.
Yeah.
In that situation, it did actually cost them quite a bit. We've kind of touched on that a whole lot, so I'm not going to go too much further into that. But we are still seeing this trend here of Flash Wolves playing safely, and I agree with that. We're not really seeing them deviate from that, and it is continuing to work even when it's a little bit tricky at certain times, but it's certainly a level of discipline that a lot of teams right now are lacking.
Definitely, to be able to identify, and you're right about the earlier mistake for Flash Wolves as well, is while it ended up costing them, on their end of the screen, when you consider what information they have available to them, that would have been in their minds.
You can understand the reasoning.
Yeah, absolutely. All the sort of steps were there, and you can totally see, look, this is the plan. We're going to stick to this plan. And what I like out of Flash Wolves is that they are very organized. They do see a few steps ahead of generally a lot of other teams, but also for themselves, they plan far ahead and they understand, okay, we will choose to not commit here because we're choosing to commit here instead.
Yeah.
That ended up being the wrong call specifically, but their line of thought and their line of thinking and their planning strategically is always correct so far.
Yeah. And I mean, they're also the sort of team that if they wanted to make a heat of the moment call and win, no, go, right? Never mind the plan. This is now a better opportunity has presented itself. They are the sort of team that can pull that off very well as well. Whereas a lot of teams would actually notice that opportunity and go, but not quite execute on that. So I like that Flash Wolves didn't do that because even though they could execute it, they went, look, let's just not take the risk. Let's not be one of those teams that thinks we can do it and then can't.
Yeah.
And I like that. Even though it caused problems, I like that on paper. Now, what I would like is that one extra step where they do still have the confidence to just pull the trigger, knowing that they are a team that can pull it off. Because sometimes that is going to be what will win it for you. And we identified it there specifically. And that's not the only time it's happened. It's not the only time that will happen. So that's just a tiny little thing that Flash can brush up on. But on the whole, solid.
The thing I want to point out for Flash is there's a potential where I think they're showing Machi too much respect. In the sense that Flash Wolves, and people can probably agree with me, despite the last result against Machi, Flash Wolves are definitely favored. They just beat AHQ 3-0. They've been blank 3-0. They're super favored in this matchup, but they're not playing like a team that's that favored.
Yeah.
Like, we only write them down as a team that's favored. They're playing like a team that still says, I think Machi can come back to this. We don't want to take a risk.
Only way they would have lost this series just out and out is if they walked into it like stupidly underprepared, which is just not even something Flash Wolves are going to do. I mean, we even saw it. We talked about it actually when the first map pick came through. They prepped smart, right? They didn't just prep well for AHQ. They prepped smart in prepping specifically for the map rather than just the team, and they pulled it out again against Machi. It was a bit of a different kind of win because it was a different team, but, you know, they pulled it out. Yeah, they've done well.
Yeah, well, I think they're definitely on the right track, and I think Machi need to pull something up for themselves. I'm going to find that out very soon when we get back into map number 3, but that's all going to happen right after this break. All right, thanks for sticking with us as we get prepared for map number 3, Flash Wolves versus Machi Esports. Still week 7, still day number 1.
What?
And still, Machi are behind, so I mean, it's a tough place for them to sit. Flash Wolves got to be feeling good. Home day, so far 5 maps in a row without dropping a single one.
Yeah, and look, this wasn't entirely unexpected after beating AHQ. Before, there were still some questions because, of course, last time these teams met, Machi did beat Flash Wolves, and I think actually Machi played Flash Wolves before Flash Wolves played AHQ. And, you know, we talked, that kind of set a lot of the beats for how the rest of that played out, but it's a different day, different round robin, and already totally different precedent being set here. And I kind of want to recontextualize this because we are on the cusp of Machi losing, and even if they do pull off a reverse sweep here, great as that will be, there'll still be a lot of questions raised, right? A loss here means Machi barely have a shot at making top 3 in the final round robin. And in order to get that, they have to win every single match between here and the end of this one, and then still beat 2 top teams minimum.
My memory just got jogged a little bit, but the last time Machi played against Flash Wolves and then won, one of the maps they won was actually King's Road.
It was.
Yes.
You're right.
So that now perfectly explains why they picked it, first of all, and secondly, it shows a big difference from then and now in the sense that, like, winning it versus getting first held is, that's pretty stark.
Yeah, a little bit nasty. And, I mean, we did identify in that particular matchup on that particular day, look, Flash Wolves were trying triple DPS. They were trying to pull off something that everyone felt was, you know, the way to play right there and then. And it's still, like, good. It's just not the only option. Flash Wolves now look a little bit more comfortable, not just in triple DPS, but also in kind of diversifying what they're playing. So maybe it was just specifically down to that, but I don't know if that bodes well for Machi or not. It's really hard to say, because if they could adapt, like, maybe they can still take it to Flash Wolves, but I can't help but feel like Machi are just kind of coming up against an impassable brick wall now.
Made even more difficult because Flash Wolves are also denying the maps that Machi were quite good against them on, which, by the way, for Assault was Volskaya. And
now they're going to Hanamura.
Flash Wolves just beat AHQ on Volskaya, so they have good reason to pick Volskaya, but they're not even going to take that risk. They're not even going to go there or allow any possibility for Machi to take this off them.
And I feel like there's something that's kind of gone on here. I wouldn't be surprised if they specifically picked Volskaya because they're good at Hanamura. I think they may have anticipated that AHQ will have prepped for Hanamura, and then they went, no, Volskaya. And then Machi were like, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of good for us. Like, what if they've prepped for Volskaya? And they're like, no, we're going to Hanamura. Like, that's comfortable for us. So maybe a bit of mind games going on here, but again, would speak to the strength of Flash Wolves prep for this particular week, which has kind of been a common theme throughout all this. But if this is the only time we actually get to see how prep can affect a matchup, then this is kind of a treat, you know, because we've talked a lot about how important support stuff is over longer tournaments. Well, it's kind of nice to have a window in on that.
I think Flash Wolves as well, I wouldn't be totally surprised if they got a first hold again.
Yeah.
Not just,
Me neither.
not just because they're playing Machi, but in terms of, if you want to look at it statistically, even just tonight, first holding against AHQ, specifically on Volskaya. They've just first held King's Row against Machi, which they lost to before. And we've
I don't
seen,
feel the Sombra is quite as good, though.
it's not going to be Sombra. If they do something weird, it'll be probably Torbjorn
Or
even a Symmetra if they want to be super weird. And they did run the Symmetra, which kind of like was hit or miss. And I don't know. I personally wasn't feeling it too much. But
yeah. I will give a bit of credit to them though. It fell just short of hitting, but that's the thing, right? It is very feast or famine. It is very either or. Either it totally hits or it totally misses. And because it didn't hit, even though it was like I said, just short of hitting, it still missed and it didn't matter anyway. And then they kind of had to swap.
Speaking of feast or famine, hit or miss, teams like to run Widowmaker a lot on Hanamura. So
and either you hit or you miss.
Pretty much. I mean, it's essentially entirely how her kit works. And it's essentially how actually most heroes with the weapon works. So, but in terms of playstyle and the expected result, there's no sort of middle ground I find for something like the Widowmaker. So, you don't have, I think, any standout Widow players on either side. Yeah, maybe Kiyomi, but
maybe
it kind of messes up Machi's composition a bit if they want to do that.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I'm particularly expecting a Widowmaker either. The teams that we see favor it, they kind of do it for different reasons. Yeah,
Blank mainly, like 100% of the time.
And
Blank.
to speak to the lower end of this table right now, Fireball do kind of like doing it as well on a Puto, but neither of those teams are here. This is Flash Wolves and Machi, and neither of them favor the Widowmaker.
Alright, so the sort of optional pick they went for, which they didn't even have to, but they'd have, is going to be the Torbjorn. Interestingly enough, they didn't get the replace in time. This is a bit min-maxing, but if you're a super good player, you would have not let the turret gone down, you would have replaced in time. But, you know, well, Flash Wolves can get away with it.
But that is super min-maxing, and he got 25% charge out of it anyway, and has reset up the turret in a nice spot, actually, not just sort of flat on the point. So they did lose Singler, though, so Machi have actually kind of got themselves an in. Never mind that, Bacon Jack shut this one right down.
Expected.
Yeah, Machi are on the point though, so they are going to force Flash Wolves into this position here. Flash Wolves kind of taking their sweet time to get onto this and have actually given up a third and a low coming onto this. So yeah, they do get a couple of kills for it though, just before Machi are able to secure the ones onto the low members of Flash Wolves. But Kimomo is out of the mech and Jongi is low, he's had to retreat. So it's really only Singler and Realman. Realman doesn't want to go into the point, so Machi do swing back. I mean, Flash Wolves bought themselves a little bit of extra time, but I mean, they still had a broken watch. They'd still lost that first point.
And it was actually fairly even right until I think the string of kills, which included Bacon Jack suiciding, was kind of what let it go for Flash Wolves as well. I do like the play out of No Talk as well, just getting the suicide to reset the mech. And it's going to be Machi pushing out on this sort of left side flank. I like to see how prepared Flash Wolves are, and you can actually see the K-Momo making the transition already, getting the rotation out.
Bacon Jack, yeah, taking out Kiyomi there is pretty significant. It's going to flag a retreat for Machi, who are maybe going to try and take the front door option of things, but
I think right door would be the right side flank up the stairs, maybe the other option now.
Tends to be one of the stronger go-tos at any rate, and interesting kind of team comp coming out of Machi here.
Yeah, actually, I don't know. I don't know that going up the stairs would be the best option either, just because to do that successfully, you need to be having a soldier that you can just sit up there, and they're not doing that. They're doing more of a straight-up dive, a traditional dive, I'll say. So maybe a front door option, like you originally said, is actually the play.
Certainly, yeah, options, but
or you know, a no attack option.
Yeah, just no attack. Well, I was going to say, Flash Wolves are kind of reading this, like, not even letting Machi think about where they're going to attack, right? They're just setting themselves up such that they can always pick someone. Look, that's a good pick out of Nones, but let's get real. Zonda's going to respawn well in time to set back up, long before Machi can properly commit to a fight anywhere near this point.
That's why Machi need to be able to find a situation where they can get a counter trade. That is not a situation where you can get a counter trade if they do get the force out of the primal rage, so
that's
they're getting small victories.
That's maybe enough to start a fight, not here, but in a moment when they do have DCR1's ultimate, plus that Transcendence to push themselves onto the point. They've got enough resources now that they should be able to fight for at least a third.
If you remember what I said when we were on Volskaya,
I do remember.
Primal Rage, I should have tested you on that, I shouldn't have even said anything. But that Primal Rage is exceptionally important for a defensive team in terms of the stall potential.
Yeah.
Without the Primal Rage now, Flash Wolves are actually really at risk of losing at least a tick.
Now here's the thing to note, they also don't have a sound barrier on the defense or a Transcendence. They have no defensive healing tools. If they pick Realman here, that should secure them the third. Popping out their own Transcendence now, hunting for Realman, but Nones doesn't find it, and that gives Realman time to get the Transcendence up, can commit to this fight if they really want, but if they just get straight picks, they won't even need it because Zonda is uncontested on this high ground. I feel like Nones didn't actually know where to look, and now he gets picked off. Yeah, they lost the duel, and that's actually going to be Zonda doing enough work to secure this fight for his team. No third for Machi. Still no Transcendence being forced out. Flash Wolves being very, very patient to hold that as they repel this attack by Machi.
Like I said,
sheer willpower and position.
Planned and calculated. They know exactly what the expected mileage out of their ultimates are. Nice little stagger play coming out of there as well. If I was... Scream!
What a drama queen!
And you know, if I'm going to min-max that one, I would say you would have been preferable to get the kill rather than the suicide, but yeah, no. That's just kind of how I operate.
Yeah, no. Speak to.
If I played an RPG, I'd min-max the hell out of the game. Anyway, but Flash Wolves.
Well, in any case, Machi now with absolutely no ultimates to go on are going to have to re-engage this fight. They're really just going to have to drag this one out as best they can. They can't even fight for a third. I'm stunned they didn't get a third before. This is just
They need to get
gross.
out.
Yeah. They can't even get time to charge their ultimates up. Zonda just has everyone's number here. It's like he saved them all in his phone. Like, yes, hello, is this Machi? Like, he's on a collect call with all the members of Machi. He has all their numbers.
Big change-ups now. Cantor's going to go onto the Hog. You got DCR1 jumping off into the Reinhardt. So,
triple tank and slow push for the right-hand side.
Yeah, so, I mean, they've lost... The good news is they've still got 3 minutes, which isn't the end of the world, but they lost all the advantage they built up from having a fast first cap. And their initial lineup was just not working whatsoever.
Oh, that isn't the hook that Kant wanted, and now he's kind of cut off from his team as half are in and half are out. DCR1 caught alone, gets shut down, no talk out of the mech, and suddenly Kant is the only tank left. They're not even drawing out ultimates, and what they are doing is charging up Bacon Jack. So they do finally pick him off, but yeah, this is not going well for Machi.
Okay, in terms of pure prediction and planning, Flash Wolves are just off the scale right now because Bacon Jack making the change up onto the Mei, like, without even seeing the triple tank lineup, is kind of the perfect counter to a triple tank without even knowing that we're going to do that.
Yeah, well, or maybe they did. Maybe this is something Machi have done in scrims that Flash Wolves knew. Hard to say, but look, once again, already picking off DCR1. And Machi is still just walking into it. I mean, like I say, shame on me if you fool me twice. Right now, Bacon Jack will have the ultimate well before Machi can even think about assaulting this point. Time's starting to run short.
Machi have committed. They've fully committed to this lineup. For them to change now, they would have to charge up ultimates and then use them and then change, or sacrifice all of these ultimates you've currently built up on the majority of your tanks. And for Flash Wolves, yeah, like maybe the prediction, maybe you know how much you're going to play, but specifically the timing of it. Bacon Jack made the switch specifically as soon as Machi made the switch as well. There's no way Machi can get past this.
For a moment I was worried. I was thinking, oh no, they're going to go for it again. And then they went, actually, hold on, let's pick out Zonda first. But then Flash Wolves just did the exact same thing on a different choke point.
You know what? I think it's time for Machi to do a blank and pull out the Reaper. Yeah. Against the ice wall.
The quote-unquote Mei counter.
I mean,
they're still
Blanket said it themselves. Well, that's because they had no option to deal with Zonda, but they
once
have
again.
This is not possible for Machi to do. Not with this lineup. There's no way a triple tank gets past this.
Okay, hold up. That one did go a little bit different. No talk, unfortunately, pushed out of the back. Okay, never mind. Right as I said that, they closed it out.
And 5 volts for Flash Wolves.
I was about to say that one went a little different because the ice wall went down and they caught Kant and No Talk but didn't actually kill them until the ice wall dropped. But then they got a whole bunch of kills anyway. It just didn't matter. And the only ultimate they used was Bacon Jacks.
Well, the good news here is they can commit a whole hog onto the ice wall to break past it quickly. The problem there is you're also committing an ultimate onto a regular ability, so you got to sort of weigh that up in your mind a little bit. But you might be getting desperate if you're Machi, so yeah. I would not be surprised.
Can't ult DCR1, even if he gets caught out here. You may just have to ult Cat, and oh, what a
there it is. Yep, there it is.
Why is this a surprise to Machi anymore? They are still committing to it, but they're not exactly getting the kills. Already lost DCO1 because they are fighting into more ultimates than they have. Even if they get a chunk now, they have to get onto the point. What?
Oh, like you said, they have to get onto the point. You literally say it.
What I was going to say is they have to get onto the point, they have to wipe Flash Wolves, and then they had to deal with the defender's advantage and the respawns coming through. And that, as it was, looked insurmountable, but I'm stunned that they didn't even get the first of those three. Like, normally the teams fail.
The easiest of the three as well to achieve.
Normally it's like, okay, they got to the point, but they didn't wipe. Or it's like, okay, they wiped, but they couldn't overcome the defender's advantage. It's very rare that we actually see teams do all that, but it's equally rare that we see a team not even touch the point.
I think Flash Wolves really easily read Machi like a book throughout that entire defense. The only place where Machi, or for Flash Wolves rather, that they kind of let go was the first cap, and this is after sort of me saying as well, it wouldn't be impossible for Flash Wolves to secure a first hold, but you know, didn't happen.
Well,
didn't happen, but the second cap hold was so good.
It was more convincing than most. Specifically
in terms of just the sheer accuracy of their predictions against what Machi were going to do. Even before the main change-up, it was like, okay, Machi going to go right, cool, committed players, some plays to the right, Bacon Jack gets an early pulse bomb. Where's Machi going to go next? They look like they're going mid. Let's go mid as well. They just always knew, look, this is where Machi were going to push. We're already set up there. We're ready for Machi no matter which way they come in. Completely annihilated their sort of dive composition game plan, because obviously they know how to play against it. And then as soon as they felt like, I think Machi are going to go for a big change up here, which, by the way, if you're Flash Wolves, what is really telegraphed is, okay, Machi use all of their ultimates. If they're going to change, this is the push they're going to change up because they just committed big.
And the thing is, like, that's not just game sense, because game sense doesn't happen that continuously. That is, if we had any questions about it, that is good prep right there. So the other thing is, like, honestly, a lot of second point defenses happen because the defender's advantage is massive and they slowly overcome the attackers in a lot of fights. But that was Machi not even touching the point.
Flash Wolves, they don't have to get a lot done here, so I don't know if this is a real strategy. Apparently it's a real strategy. We'll have to see how far it goes. Under. I was going to say, unsurprisingly, the first one down, but he manages to just get himself alive.
Subverts your expectations. Oh, and he's figured it out. He's spotted the turret.
Aha, that's the min-max turret placement I'm looking for.
That's how you do it.
You got him. You got him, Restia.
Restia knows what's what. Already got the reposition in. Zonda, again, he's struggling. He's having a 1v1 against this turret.
No, he's going to go for Nones here. Should actually win because this one not gets protected.
No, yeah, very well protected. And Zonda, he's got the healing on him, but he does hit the back off. This is good for Flash Wolves, though, because it's opened up a bit of a positional weakness here in Machi as they had to pull back the Diva. Zonda now going aggressive. Picking out one of the tanks actually is nice for them. And they should be able to set themselves up at this point. Bacon Jack is sitting off the front here, waiting for the opening to go around the backside. There it is as he picks off DCR1. And this is going to be Flash Wolves winning this opening fight here. Capping this point through any second now, unless something nuts happens, but not even Restia is that nuts.
You want a pistol duel between two unmech'd Divas is just... It's not something you see every day, and even a stagger here directly onto Noni is what you said earlier.
Wait, hold on. K-Momo took a dive. I thought that was Kant taking a dive. I was like, yeah, the defending Diva is going to take a dive, but that was K-Momo.
Well, no, Kant. Well, K-Momo wants to reset the mech,
I suppose, yeah. It makes
exactly the same play Kant made earlier on. So not Kant, whoever else was playing. It was no talk was playing Diva the last time Machi. Anyway, the point is, what you said earlier was actually really important because Zonda forced Kant to go and protect Nonez. Flash Wolves took an opening where the Diva was gone, there was no Matrix, and they went for a push.
This is a really high pressure situation for Machi. Flash Wolves only need a third, so every time Flash Wolves touch the point, Machi have to decide when they're going to commit, and if they do it too late, they just lose. This is a great commit out of Flash Wolves, really forcing Machi's hand. Now they're going to have to commit to the point with a skeleton crew. It's just going to be Kant, who barely gets the self-destruct off in time, but it's not even on the point. Nonez not there with the tac visor, and Machi get dismantled.
And that is a lot more of a convincing victory from Flash Wolves in a 3-0 fashion than what we saw against AHQ. At AHQ, it was close. AHQ could have taken it. Machi here, I don't know. I don't believe they could have taken any map tonight based on that performance.
I think maybe they could have taken Oasis, but it would have been because Flash Wolves didn't adapt to them quick enough after beating AHQ on that map.
But even the one round that Machi did take, I still base that off the fact that I believe, what is that? Is that a troll play? It's blocked of his own teammate. Anyway, I believe that was more based off the fact that Flashwolves made mistakes rather than Machi outplaying Flashwolves.
And they weren't like, oh wow, how bad that Flashwolves made mistakes. Like they just, I mean, you'd want to make no mistakes as a team, right? But I mean, those are the sort of mistakes that a lot of people make. They're those split-second kind of mistakes that are even hard to call mistakes sometimes. Like I said, you want to not make them. But even so, in that match, I still feel like Flashwolves outplayed what Machi were trying to do.
Overall, yes.
Yeah, with that high ground on City Center. And then we saw that the second time they ended up on that map, they won it pretty handily. So I even find it hard to say that they lost that map. Even though, strictly speaking, they did. Yeah. The match kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, it does. I think as well, as much as I still do give credit for Machi for their ability to win the early fights and take the early caps on the other maps, which is Gardens and University, it takes a lot of discipline and correct forward planning for a team like Flashwolves to then understand, hey, we can take it back, but this is when we're going to take it back, and this is our expected duration of a hold once we do get to take it back. And they executed that, and they got it. They just get it.
Yeah. Well, in any case, Flashwolves, they earned that barbecue. You reckon they go?
Do you think if they just if they drop the last map, it's just barbecue off, guys?
Yeah, like whoops, nope, no, sorry.
You needed to go 6-0.
Do you think
to get a barbecue?
They specifically go to Korean barbecue because that's how they learn the Korean strats? like they try and live as Koreans.
Well, they just
try and up their skill.
Yeah, so they don't even speak Chinese to each other anymore. It's just they speak Korean.
They speak
now.
Korean over dinner and who
playing
knows?
on the Korean.
I mean, I don't imagine that they go to an American style barbecue. They're roast wieners out.
Are they not allowed to just have their own barbecue at home or something?
I don't know. Is there a Taiwanese barbecue that I don't know about?
I don't know
Is that a
either.
specific thing? Well,
they'll find out and we'll still be wondering. But I mean, this has been a super successful day for Flashwolves.
It has.
6-0, specifically against both teams that beat them before in the previous round robin.
Yeah, it's huge for Flashwolves. And on the other side of that, I don't want to touch too much on AHQ because there's now just other questions about them anyway. We'll address that later down the line. Probably won't even be able to address them until the final round robin. But Machi are a team we can address because Machi are a team that are now looking in a dire situation. Even if they do hold on to the point where they get another opportunity to break into top 3, like I said, they are going to have to beat at least 2 of those top 3 teams at this point. I don't even think beating 1, unless there is a team that happens to lose to a bunch of teams who are not in the top 3, which I see as being very unlikely, unless maybe Blank just have this dizzying fall. Machi are going to have to beat at least 2 teams. They can't beat Flashwolves. They can't seem to beat AHQ. I doubt they can beat Blank, even if they give themselves a window. So I do not think they have the ability to climb through.
Let's take a look at the current standings now that they've been updated with Flashwolves' new picked up 2-0 victory, which puts them at equal standing in terms of wins against AHQ, although still 1 extra loss against AHQ. So they're now definitely ahead of Blank, who for the first time in the entire tournament are at number 3. They've been at number 1 for a long time, recently been at number 2, and now currently number 3, and this is the lowest Blank have been all tournament.
Yeah, up until last weekend, Blank, they wrapped off the second round robin actually tied for first. And given that they went undefeated in the first one and AHQ went undefeated in the second one, not too surprising. But then AHQ kind of slam dunked that one, dropped Blank straight down. They resolved the tie. Yeah, they resolved the tie, basically, and were convincingly on top of it. But now I'd say Flashwolves are convincingly on top of AHQ Esports Club. The standings just haven't quite reflected that yet. So really what's happened is this whole top 3 has just kind of reshuffled itself.
And as a bit of a reminder as well for the matches that we saw, yep, it is Flashwolves beating AHQ 3-0. Flashwolves also beating Machi 3-0 right afterwards that we just saw as well. I want to quickly bring up, before we get into the post-match interview, is a little bit of, I guess, foresight into tomorrow's Blank versus Flashwolves game.
Yeah.
Based on what we just saw from Flashwolves.
This is going to be interesting. And I think the thing that this really spoke to was Flashwolves' ability to prep. Now, look, Blank are a team that can prep as well, but Blank are also a team that have had to analyze what went wrong against AHQ and fix that as well. And
of which we'll see later on.
Yeah,
hopefully.
which we will see, right? We'll see if they fix those mistakes, but they're going to have gone a level beyond that as well. That's a lot to do in a week. That is a big ask. And this is also Blank, who we've been quite frank in saying, do not have the same amount of support staff and infrastructure as Flash Wolves, AHQ, and even Machi, and even Hong Kong Attitude, in fact. So it raises questions about that. That doesn't mean Blank support staff are bad. That's not what that means at all. They just have less of it, right? Everyone is overworked in that situation. Everyone has a lot on their shoulders, and that can really weigh on a team. I feel like this is a moment where actually Blank could crack.
I think actually for Blank, this is it's that, or this is the biggest turning point, because Blank, after that loss to AHQ, the first loss, it was like, yeah, I don't know, that shouldn't have happened. We were the favored team. And then the loss against Flash Wolves was like, I think we just played badly. That was still winnable. Then suddenly the 3-0 that HQ gave them was the first time Blank really sit down and look and think,
they went,
okay,
yeah,
they actually just outplayed us here. We are definitely worse in that particular match.
The first loss where the other team was the better team.
And now Blank go into this game against Flash Wolves. First of all, not underestimating Flash Wolves whatsoever based on the results so far. Second of all, fully understanding that this is the big match for them this week.
Yeah.
Now for Flash Wolves, you have to come into this weekend knowing AHQ and Blank, you got to prepare for both, and they're not the same team. AHQ play vastly different to how Blank play. You need to understand exactly how both those teams work. We've seen how they can understand AHQ. Can they do that against Blank as well? Very different question. Now
Blank are a harder ask because of their sheer flexibility.
Now Blank is, well, only has to prepare against Flash Wolves, technically.
Yeah. The interesting thing about this, by the way, if Blank actually do pick up the win, it's going to raise a lot of questions. It is going to suggest that they may actually be back ahead of the curve. Certainly going to say they've fixed a lot of problems and then also done that prep. It's going to say that they've been able to do what is a very hard ask for them compared to other teams in that situation, specifically, even if those teams aren't in that situation. If they were, is what I mean. But there will be questions raised as to whether they can fully reclaim the title of being the top team. And that is not a question that will be answered until the final round robin. So that's something that will hang over their heads for the remainder of this, even if they beat Flash Wolves.
Yeah. And player of the game is Zonda.
Well deserved.
Briefly saw there. And
can't give it all to Jongi.
No, you can't give it all to Jongi. I mean, you'd have to be pretty biased.
You can't give it all to Zonda either, I suppose. Like, they were like, all right, let's give it to Jongi in the first one and Zonda in the second one.
I don't think
the whole team's good. Anyone could have taken it.
Personally, I wouldn't have cared too much if it was Jongi again, because I still think Jongi would have deserved it. Now, sharing the love around a little bit as well. Personally, I wouldn't have been opposed to giving it to Bacon Jack either.
I would have actually put my money on Sinclair there. I'm going to be completely honest, and not just because he got some cool looking headshots. He was actually very well timed on his transcendences. I think he did make one slight mistake once in the entire 2 matches that they played tonight. That's surely player of the game material there. If anything, a bit of an unsung hero.
Or maybe Zonda and Jongi can get an extra serving and a helping of steak on barbecue later on.
And hopefully they'll put someone to Sinclair's plate. Like, there you go. But we noticed. And actually, they did notice. Jongi even pointed that out actually in his interview. He dives specifically making sure he keeps a sightline with his supports. He doesn't make them reposition. If he dives and they don't have sightline, that's his fault. And I think that's quite a good attitude.
All right, we're going to have a talk with Zonda as well. The post-match interview, play of the game.
刚打赢了耶！
好开心哦
How do you feel? He's extremely happy.
我现在来问问题。第一就是要问说，上次在访问中啊，你说袁氏呢开大，因为双保护的关系难发挥，那为什么这次又选择了袁氏？而且
Genji was really hard to play, especially
因为对方没有选2只就是双保护的技能，因为他好像比较擅长的是安娜，他不擅长的和尚，所以我就可以拿出袁氏这只角色。
He felt better this time around.
就是不拿和尚，然后拿安娜。
所以
你是
playing Genji because
对，因为这样子的话，他们只要保护技没有的话，我就可以杀蛮多人的。
There was generally less protection coming out from the other team, specifically less tanks and specifically supports.
你其他还有擅长的吗？或是你正在练的？
其实所有输出角我都会啦。我觉得我们队伍最擅长的就是角色死，然后都玩得很好，这就是我们队伍的优势在。
是。那今天打赢了，就是要去吃烤肉吗？
啊，对啊，因为我们就这礼拜团练压力比较大，因为有关系到那个世界赛的票选，我们要赢得心服口服。 所以就没有什么休闲时间去
as well
吃
as
大餐
practice
之
for
类
World
的。
Cup.
可是我听
We
到
haven't had a
你
lot
其
of
他
time to
团员
rest.
说，上次访问他说，其实每次已经吃饱了，但你还是硬要吃宵夜。
People say that
看拖吧，他们就硬要说我，对啊，
Usually
就
when
讲好像
people
自
are full,
己
you're
被逼
still
的，
eating.
明明就是我才是被逼的吧？
那你会为了因为就是拍海报，还是上镜头好看，然后少吃一点吗？
我现在吃很少啊。
He says I've
我
actually
现在吃很少。
可能你
eating
吃
a lot
很少，
less
跟
now.
大家的那个
没有，我真
的
的吃很少，我现在都不太吃炸的，也没在喝饮料。
哦
He says I've cut down on deep fried food and
好，我们再次恭喜闪电狼赢得这次比赛。那提醒哦，现场的观众朋友，等等结束之后，沙发区队伍会采访后呢，闪电狼特工们会在舞台
You've also got a
各位
McCree in the back pocket if you've been practicing everything else. And he says I can actually play a lot of the DPS heroes, so he's still ready to bring out all the other picks if and when necessary.
But she basically just called him fat. Like, so in a nice way, like, I hear you tend to eat more than your teammates.
So
like,
here's something I got to clear up.
What's up with that?
So here's something I got to clear up is, one, there's been a bit of a running joke right from the start of OPC where during the interviews it's kind of like, I can't believe...
And how much do you eat?
I can't remember who started the Zonda eating joke, but it was essentially, yeah, Zonda likes to go out and he buys expensive food that I can't afford because Zonda obviously is one of, I would say, the more experienced professional players on the team. Specifically, he came from League of Legends as a pro player, and also he's got a big streaming fan base as well with a lot of concurrent views. So obviously, the guy makes some extra cash than his other teammates, so he's spending a bit bigger, and he's also eating a bit bigger as well. Now the running jokes.
He gets barbecue every week.
Yeah. So the running joke started, I guess, kind of from there. It's like, yeah, Zonda's eating again, all this kind of stuff. And secondly, I guess a cultural difference is in Taiwan and China and a lot of Asian countries, it's not as an offensive thing to say, oh, you've put on a bit of weight. It's a more acceptable thing. Anyway, that is the end of week 7, day number 1. If you're a real Flash Wolves fan, you'll stay up an extra 3 hours to watch the other team playing a completely different tournament in a completely different game. But for us, that's it from the Full Circle team. Also myself, Kevin, AVRL, Walker, Matt, Pixie, Carol, and we'll join you again tomorrow for week 7, day number 2. See you around.